Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay.
We can get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Venkatraman. I'm working as director in Ola Cabs. Prior to Ola Cabs, I was working with PayPal in the checkout team, so where our primary work was conversion optimization. So I'm going to share my experiences working with PayPal largely, and also the whole journey of whatever I learned in the last 8 years being a product manager. Um, Again, I know it's a very busy weekday afternoon for everyone, and special thanks to each of you for taking your time and taking part in this webinar. To start with, what is that we would take away from this webinar? So in today's session, we would understand all the processes related to a very important area of product management, which is product optimization. Right? I also understand that some of the participants here are already doing a product manager role. So your takeaway would be to go back with some frameworks and a structure to improve your roadmap and enable yourself to do your day-to-day work as PM better in a more awareful manner. Right? Uh, for the first 45 minutes, I would go over the concepts. Right? The last 15 minutes can be reserved for Q&A. By putting Q&A towards the end, we can ensure that we complete the webinar on time, and folks who have meetings and other engagements at 4 o'clock, they can leave on time. And I would be using examples from e-commerce to drive the concepts because one is everybody understands e-commerce, it's easy to grasp, irrespective of whether they're from domain X or Y, right? But the same concepts and principles can be applied to any product management space. Right? Okay, so before introducing what product optimization or what I mean by product optimization here, let's start with how a typical product roadmap looks after your product has been launched. So your company came with this wonderful product, right? And you had requirements. You came up with a minimum viable product and you launched it, right? And after you're launching, now you have so many things to do. How do you classify them, right? Uh, and march forward, right? The first set of things that will be obvious in your backlog is the items that were earlier descoped in your MVP. So you had like 50 features to build for MVP, then you understand that there is a deadline pressure to release the product on time. They are now piled up as a big backlog by themselves, right? So this could be like in an e-commerce scenario, right? You built a flow for users to order items from their site, and you wanted to provide an order cancellation button and functionality, but you realize that that's not something you must have to do within the deadline. You can always have people call up your call center, cancel the order, and it's livable till you reach a critical mass. So that will be one example of that MVP descoped items. Then all your accounting, internal accounting, you could automate it later because that's not very critical. With low volumes, it's okay to live with. So you have taken conscious decisions to descope a lot of items. That will be one big bucket. The second bucket would be the growth, right? Whatever that adds new users and new revenue sources to your company, right? That could be expanding to more cities or more countries, or expanding to different verticals. For example, if you're a payments company, you started with recharge, and now you want to go to utilities billing, which is bringing more number of users and new market with it, right? The third is optimization, which will go in a while. The fourth is all the tech stack improvements. Um, when you built your product, you had something, and your developers had something in mind. They had time pressure. They built few things. Now is the time to do all the code refactoring. Improving support for more number of users, doing your performance benchmarking. That I'm classifying it as tech stack improvements. Yeah. Now let's go over what is optimization. So what I call optimization are incremental improvements to the product that will deliver more of measurable value to your customers. I'm emphasizing the measurable value. I'll go through it in a while. And these incremental improvements to the product uh, can also improve your core product metrics. Usually it's both of them. Some features that I call optimization will do one after the other. Most of them will definitely deliver more value to your customers as well as improve your metrics. And what we don't consider as optimization are huge product flow revamps, new product extensions, um, right? You're addressing new use cases, whichever takes a lot of time to implement or not. Um, for example, I can say I can do a product revamp as a series of small features, test them, and launch it. So there, the line between optimization and non-optimization goes away, right? So why is optimization important? If you look at a typical product life cycle, right? You introduce the product, it grows very faster, then it matures at some point, and then you remove the product from the market, right? Across almost all the phases, you have to do product optimizations. You have to do all this incremental improvements to the product, add more value to the customers. It's not always growth, right? You will do incremental improvements throughout the life cycle of the product, right? Hello.
Hello, Venkat. We lost you in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah. Okay, you're able to hear now, right?
Yeah, now.
Okay. Sure. Sorry about that. So I was saying optimization is very important across different phases of the product lifecycle, right? Okay. Now that as a PM you decided to take on optimization, what is that? Where would you start with, right? That's the first question. So you start with defining your optimization theme. So what you do is you go talk to your management, agree on an optimization theme, and this theme necessarily needs to be a metric driven one. I'll tell you the reason later. So you go to your management and say, I want to focus on improving conversion rate or reducing transaction cost, right? Why we need metric is, a metric gives you focus and direction. Without metric, what you can end up doing is you can end up doing 10 different things, which improves the product here and there. But at the end of the quarter or end of the half year, you'll not have something concrete to show. So that would be the challenge. And it's not just for proving to other people, it's also to proving to yourself that what you did eventually impacted the business. What if, let's say, your theme is something like, improving user experience. Improving user experience is something very broad topic, right? There you can actually quantify it by parameters like net promoter score improvement or user feedback score, right? Have those themes, and end of the quarter you will see whether you really improve the net promoter score. Because with user experience you can do, let's say, 5-10 things which are logically sounding like good ones to have, but if they don't move the metric for your company, then it's not really great to have focused on that, right? And after you agreed on the focus metrics, you need to set targets and challenge yourself and the team, right? So one such challenge can be, I will improve conversion rate by 1% in this quarter, right? If you're a large company, mature product, maybe this 1% goal can be for the entire year. So that's the kind of goal we used to have in PayPal checkout, where our goal was 2% improvement in conversion throughout the whole year. And it was pretty difficult to do that 2% because the product was already a matured one and people had thought through a lot of improvements to improve the product, right? And now you and your team as in, I include your developers also, your developers, your designers, you as a PM, your management, all agreed on a theme. Now what do you do, right? Now you go to data, which is probably the most critical thing in the whole process, and the most challenging as well. So now you look at what is that data I need to have, right? So number one obvious thing is the metric you had agreed upon, right? For simplicity's sake, I'm going to take conversion rate for an e-commerce website as the theme, and I'm going to talk through the whole presentation, right? And so first number you will gather is the conversion rate of your e-commerce site, right? Okay, you have this one number. Is this one number good enough? Probably not. You need to have a funnel to say where all the users dropped and where all the opportunities are, right? And you need to also have drill downs sometimes, because funnel will give just one view of what is happening with the user, but it doesn't say how different users go through the funnel differently. You could have a guest flow or a registered member flow. Both the conversion rates could be very different, right? Think, sorry, I got lost again. Hope you are able to hear now. Okay. Now you got the data. You need to validate it once. Yeah. Hello, Suraj?
Yes, we can hear you. You can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, we need to validate the integrity of data, because we instrument data, but sometimes there are issues in the code where the numbers don't add up together. For example, you could create a conversion funnel and just adding up them together does not add to the number you see on the top of the funnel, right? It's very important to sort those issues right away. And if you see gaps, start writing stories around it. Prioritize those instrumentation stories and bug fixes, because data is going to be the key for everything you do and all the decisions you make. So getting the right data is very, very critical. Okay. let's say you identified all the gaps. You found that you had to do development work to correct these data gaps, which takes 3 to 4 months. What do you do about it, right? Would you spend 3 months correcting your data? But if you do that, what happens is the management can get jittery, which means after a quarter you delivered nothing other than the instrumentation, right? To make things work, the best practice is to put 20% of your effort on instrumentation, prioritize the ones that are very much directly related to the next set of features you want to launch. So take instrumentation in a staggered manner so that you are able to do instrumentation as well as deliver improvement in your metric in parallel. Team should not get bogged down by just doing instrumentation and not come up with results. So next is the key slide. Okay, you got the metric right, you got the data right, or you are in the process of getting the data right. What are those things you do which contribute, or which we call it as product optimization cycle, right? For simplicity, I'm going to use this example funnel, which you will see in the screen, right? I'm taking a conversion rate as my focus metric. I'm taking a smaller funnel, not the whole e-commerce web funnel. I'm saying my product funnel is whenever the user viewed the item, from there till he completed the payment and the order was confirmed. I'm taking the funnel. I got the data. The data I see is something like this. From 100% of users, I eventually convert 39% of them. There are drops at different points. At the first level, after when somebody viewed an item before adding to cart, some 20% dropped, then a 10% overall drop from add cart to address page, then 12%, 13%, and finally when the guy was ready to pay for the item, some 6% fell off the thing. So now you know, from seeing this slide, you will know where all your opportunities, right? What is the biggest opportunity? The questions you ask yourself are like, what is the biggest opportunity here? It sounds like the first part of the funnel is the biggest opportunity, which is 20%. What are the possible hypotheses that user dropped off after viewing an item, right? So this is where you start your hypothesis phase, right? You can go back to your customers to understand why they are behaving the way they are, right? You can call up customers registered on your site who dropped off, right? You could send surveys. You could just go with the customers or bring some customers to office and figure out where they are faltering, and create hypothesis around it. The hypothesis would be something like, why did something wrong happen here? So for the from view item to add cart, the possible hypothesis could be the guy just didn't like the item. That's a plain truth, could, right? Or he did not have enough information to make an informed choice. So he found the item, but he saw the image, but he couldn't clearly see what color that was, right? So he dropped off. He didn't want to buy. Right? There could be many reasons. You will have to create hypothesis, multiple hypotheses, and take each of them as a feature and test it out. Okay. Now you have your hypothesis. You found your opportunities. You had sized each of the opportunities. Like, if I touch this area of the funnel, how much I can improve. Now the next step before you build is actually to prioritize, right? I'm going to talk about a simple framework to prioritization, where you list down all the features, right? Put in an impact score of a feature, which can be 1 to 9. 1 means very low impact, 9 means very high impact, and also effort scores, where 1 means very high effort, 9 means low effort, right? In a typical prioritization process, what people do is they just use only impact and effort, wherein impact by effort will give you the return on investment, right? How much impact did this feature create with 1 day of effort, for example? That's the return of investment. In this new framework, I'm adding one more factor called confidence factor, right? I'll go back to my funnel to explain what that confidence factor means, right? If you look at this funnel, you see the biggest opportunity lies at the top of the funnel, which is 20%, right? From view item to add cart, right? But the smallest opportunity seem to be somewhere between pay and order is being confirmed, which is 6%, right? But in reality, it's very easy to solve the 6% problem compared to the 20% problem, right? Because when the user does not like the item, could be the top cost for a person who's not adding to the cart, or he is just a casual browser. He doesn't have any intention, and it is very hard to solve for such use cases, right? Whereas at the bottom of your funnel, if you dissect that 6%, you might see that maybe 1% of the cases could be just an edge case wherein your integration with your payment provider is not really good, right? And there was some erroring out. If you correct that integration issue, you will just get that 1% for free, right? So the confidence factors brings this factor, the subjective factor, where how much confident are you in this hypothesis being successful, right? A confidence factor of 9 means that if you do this feature, whatever you estimated as an impact will fully happen. You know that this will definitely create an impact. A confidence factor of 2 or 3 is you're just testing it for the sake of it. You're creating a person, you're thinking, oh, maybe user thought this way, maybe you're changing the color of a button, or thinking that, hey, it might impact the user psychology and make them complete the purchase, right? Which are low confidence factors. So impact, effort, and confidence factor, come up with a net score, which can be a multiplicatory factor of this thing, and you prioritize the features, right? Okay. Is it all a numerical exercise for prioritization? Of course not. Depending on the context you live in, the environment in your company, things could change. Let's say your utmost important task is to create very high impact things first to prove this whole concept of optimization to management and to take it forward. Then you can put more weightage on the impact itself. You take up impacts, items with higher impact and higher confidence factor. You can ignore the effort. Or if your company does not give you enough engineers to do this, you probably take up things with lower effort and do this. So where you can change this framework to add weights to each of these factors and deliver. And there could be other environmental things like, let's say between feature F1 and F2, F1 is a more impactful feature, or F1 has more net score, but F2 is being asked by a very important customer of yours, right? Then you could make the trade-off, say that, hey, I will do F2 first because it solves my top customer's problem. Also, it gives me gains in the optimization, right? You could do the reordering based on what's happening in your company and add all the subjective elements to it. Right? Okay, now we go back to the optimization cycle. Now you prioritized it. You will build it, right? You work with the engineers, designers, you build it, and then you launch it, right? Since we have always been metric focused, the recommendation is to test whatever you have built. Test as in measure. So there are multiple ways to approach this measurement of the impact. I'm just touching upon 2 of the measuring techniques, right? And go over the pros and cons. One is pre-post measurement, which is straightforward, wherein let's say you launch a product on June 1st, right? You look at the conversion rate the week or month before June 1st, and then you look at the conversion after you launch the feature, which is on June 1st, from June 1st to whatever till next 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and you compare, and you can claim that, hey, the conversion has improved, the drop-offs in particular stages of the funnel have come down, and this is the impact, right? That is the pre-post measurement. There is something alternative, which is A/B test, right? So what is A/B test? A/B testing is a technique used to test a feature or roll out a feature to a small percentage of users and measure the impact, comparing them with control group of users, which is the users who didn't have the features. So let's say you wanted to test the color of a button, right? You had a blue button in your payment page. You want to test whether red creates a higher conversion rate. Just hypothetically, you think that people get focused on red and they will click it more often before they change any decisions, right? So you can use A/B test, wherein you will say, hey, 10% of users will see the blue button, and another 10% will see red button, right? So by rolling out your project to two set of users at the same time, you can over a period of time measure which was impactful. So A/B test, as you would see, you are comparing users almost at the same time frame with the same environment, everything. So it's more reliable than the pre-post measurement, right? So I'll give an example why pre-post will have problems. Let's say I'm taking the same example. You launched a feature on June 1st, and the May last week there was a festival, right, where people came to your site. They could have they had a lot of buying intention, and more people just bought from your site because it was a festival, right? Your conversion rate would be higher. And June first week after you launch the feature, there is no festival. People who come there, but not many of them buy, right? So you would end up seeing a lower conversion rate after you rolled out the feature. So you can't conclude anything. In fact, you might conclude that your feature screwed up, and you might want to roll it back, right? Whereas if you did this on A/B testing framework, you would actually put two set of users on the same day, same environment, everything, and compare the results, which is more trustable, right? So yeah, these are the two ways to measure the success of your project. And I want to touch upon one more thing, which is drilling down the user segments, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say your conversion rate is somewhere 63 to 65%, right? Conversion rate doesn't stay same every day, right? It keeps changing. One day it will be 63.1, next day it will be 64, another day it will be 63.2. It keeps changing, and you come up with an improvement that you are expecting to improve the conversion rate by 0.2%, right? With the general conversion rate of 63 to 65%, how will 0.2% show up, right? It's almost impossible to measure that 0.2%, because after you roll out, what if that 63 to 65 range was swinging on the lower end? You might think that your product feature didn't do well, or you will not be actually able to conclude anything at all, right? So there you can do something. I'll give an example we had in PayPal. So we saw an opportunity in the form of users whose cookies and JavaScripts were disabled in the browser. We had around 1% of the users who had cookies disabled, and once they go to our PayPal checkout, the page bombed, it aborted. There was a big error message, not even error message. It was showing a abort screen, right? And nothing happened. People can't do anything about it. So that was very small percentage, right? 1% of users. now what we did was we made changes, and we said, before hitting our PayPal core code, let us check for this cookie or JavaScript, and we will message the user to enable the cookie and JavaScript for this to work, right? We did this change. We did testing, but just looking at the test data, we didn't have any insight. So what we did was we drilled down the data to go and see what happened to that 1% of users, right? When we took people who had disabled cookies, we found that there was a 10% improvement before compared on the new page where we showed them messages compared to the old abort scenario, right? So though the eventual metric that it moved was 0.1%, which is like a needle in the haystack, right? By drilling down into that particular segment of users who face this problem, we were able to confidently say that, hey, this was, though it was like a 1.1%, but if I look at that user I targeted, it was a 10% improvement, and 10% cannot be an accidental thing, right? Accidental improvement. So we were able to prove that way, prove to ourselves and to the management that this improvement, which was technically got lost in the whole big conversion number, is actually existing. It's something we really impacted. Right? Okay. So did we cover everything? Yeah. So once you test, you learn. What do you learn? You learn whether your hypothesis worked or not. If your hypothesis worked, well and good. Maybe can you improve upon the hypothesis? Or if your hypothesis failed, you thought users would behave in some way. Your let's say your button test changing colors failed. What do you learn? Okay, button colors don't impact anything on conversion. That's all you learn. You could also then you take up another set of problems in your funnel and you start analyzing them. Or after you learn something, you can actually go back to the next hypothesis in your problem directly and start iterating it this way. So by doing it in a very cyclical manner, you bring in some focus, you bring in some discipline to the whole product management processes. Okay, so one interesting thing I want to point out about optimization compared to a growth or product introduction phase work is it's typically a bottom-up innovation. So what is bottom-up, right? The ideas, the improvements usually come from bottom of the company, not necessarily from the top of the company. Your CEO would know a lot about your market, your customers, your competition. He knows in and out of those things, but he may not exactly know what is all the reasons for your people dropping off in a particular page, or some error that happens in a corner case, right? Or some bugs. You don't have any insights on that. Only data can tell that, right? All your funnel can tell that, right? And your engineering team QAs work on your code, test them day in, day out, and they will have a lot of ideas, a lot of areas they would have seen where your code breaks, there are vulnerabilities, edge cases, flows don't go well, and those things would have been ignored in the past because people are busy in building the base product. But those are real opportunities which can help move the needle in your favor. So you should work closely with your engineers QA and tap their ideas and bring success to the whole team. We are almost at the end of the webinar. I'm just going to leave you with a few things before I start the Q&A. So what all things we learned? We learned about different ways to categorize your roadmap. It could be growth, optimization, tech stack, everything. And we introduced what optimization is, which is a set of incremental improvements to your product that moves metrics, right? And we learned about being very metric focused and not have a backlog with so many items that's all over the place, right? We talked about importance of having data upfront, and more importantly, having the right quality data. Right? We went through the optimization cycle. What are those 9-10 things you go over to successfully run optimization projects? We touched upon prioritization framework. How do you prioritize? How do you bring in that confidence factor when you're prioritizing? We also touched upon measurement techniques, A/B testing, pre-post, where it falters, and how do you drill down to measure smaller impacts, right? And if there's only one thing you have to take away, I would call it that metric focus. Being metric focus is the key for anything you do with optimization. You might be tempted as PMs to do feature to see impact or to see user experience improve, but without metrics, it's not going to take us so far. Right? Now, yes, we can open up for questions. I think we have 20 minutes
So
spare.
Venkat, we have question from Vignesh Raja.
Okay.
So he is asking who determines and provide the impact rating.
It's judgmental. I think it again depends on company to company, right? Let's say I'm a large company like PayPal, right? I could I will have maybe 1 million or anything more than 10 million revenue impact will be a highest rating, right? If I'm a very small company, even a 10K or 100K impact would be a higher impact one. It's very subjective. And another way you could use it, you could just look around what are the hypotheses and the things you have, and uh, you could relatively force rank them instead of giving an impact number. You can force rank items from 1 to, if you have 9 items in the backlog, force rank them with 1 to 9. That way you can solve the problem of how do I map this impact number with the corresponding dollar value or rupee value. Hope that helps.
So we have one more question from Manish. What are the buildings blocks for A/B test? Shall we highly dependent upon tools, or is there something other best practice?
Can you repeat that question once more so that I understand it clearly?
Yeah. What are the building blocks for A/B test? Shall we be highly dependent upon tools, or is there any practice?
If you're a very small company, it's better to buy an A/B testing tool, right? There are multiple tools in the market that comes at relatively low cost. The way they price is with the number of users that you will be testing. If you're a small company, that means you will be paying less for the tool, right? A/B testing. Okay, let me just quickly run through what A/B testing does, right? The tool by itself. The tool does a couple of things. One is it helps to split the traffic randomly or as per your criteria, right, on the runtime. When a user comes, it will determine which experience that the user should see, whether it should see the blue button or the green button, right? That is one area it really helps. Number two is it automatically measures the goals, the conversion goals, and it clearly reports to you saying whether blue button won or the red button won, right? So if you start building it, it's going to be like a huge effort. So my recommendation would be to buy that product, especially when you're small. Only when you are a very huge company, when you find that most products in the market don't even fit your scale, it's better to build something on your own. Otherwise, it's going to be very time consuming. It's not a core competency for engineers, right, to do A/B testing. Yeah, Suraj, yes.
So I think we are done with the questions. So we can wrap up the session here.
Oh, great. Okay, so we are giving back 15 minutes of the time.
Yeah. So
Cool.
anyone Wanted to ask any question? Can type on the chat box.
We'll give them a couple of minutes to think and ask questions.
Yes, yes.
Suraj.
Venkat, we have one question from Rajan.
Okay.
Hello. So that is, what
Yes.
are key points should be considered before converting a idea to build as a product?
Okay. So now you had an idea. Okay. So what are the key things, right? One is, did you validate this idea with your customer? Does this idea sound like good for your customer? Did you talk to people? Number one. Number two, what is the size of the users or the impact that it can produce? One is to your customers, two is your business itself, right? Um, so can you repeat the question? Maybe I missed something.
So the question is, what are the key points should be considered before converting an idea to build as a product?
Okay, yeah. So okay, so one I said was talking to a customer. Two is sizing the impact of the idea, right? How much of an impact it can create. If it is a idea that impacts, let's say, 1% of a customer, and another idea impacts 10% of the customers, then you might be leaning towards that 10% idea. The third would be, what is the impact to one customer what this idea brings in. So what this means is, let's take an example where you have an idea to improve your payment experience, right? Where there is a edge case where the payment fails. So this could be an edge case where maybe 1% of your customers could be impacted, but it could be a very bad experience for that 1%, right? That so though in terms of size of the idea it's small, but the impact on one particular customer is very high. For example, safety issues in a product, right? Though you might say the 99% we are safe, if that 1% leads to a lot of losses to your customer, right? If the credit card can get stolen potentially, right? If you're not solving a problem, then you should prioritize that. So it's about, so I'm just summarizing. It's about, did you talk to the customer? Number two, what is the size of, what is the number of customers that are getting impacted? Three is, what is the intensity of the pain that you're solving for a single customer? Right. These are the three considerations I will have. And if you're asking this question in general, then are these aligned to your current goals? Is what I look at. If you're a team that is an optimization focused team, and if the idea is coming on safety, probably you should give this to another team, right? Or if you are just one product team, then yeah, you will have to say, I will do 40% optimization, I'll do 20% related to other things, where you can put in the safety items. Yeah, Suraj, next one.
Yeah. So there's one more question. This question from Piyush. So he's asking, there might be instances when building a MVP might not be possible. Neither there is an option of A/B testing. How do we determine whether or not to go ahead with the launch?
Okay. Say that again. Can you repeat it?
So there
The
might
line
be
was breaking it.
instances when building a MVP, assume it is most
Okay.
valuable product, might not be possible. Neither there is an option of A/B testing. How do we determine whether or not to go ahead with the launch?
Okay, so I'm not recommending A/B testing for MVP, because there is no A or B, right? It's just that one product you're going to put into the market. Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll take this as a different question. How do you determine whether to go with the MVP or not? Right. I'll take this out of context of optimization, because in MVP time or MVP launch, you don't care about optimization, right? You care about building something that gives value. If the question is about MVP go no go, right? So the key thing I look at is, does your MVP solve an important problem for the customer, or whatever your product stands for, right? Which we call it as the core value proposition of the product. If you are a um, if you are a Facebook, then your core value proposition is connecting your friends, right? So Facebook cannot go without friends, for example, right? Or if you are a hyper local store, the core value proposition you can say is getting things delivered at home. So your MVP should contain everything that will get the items delivered at home, right? So whatever you defined as the core value proposition of the product, if it is there, if it is working fine, then you go with the launch. If your chat feature is not working, you're not launching WhatsApp. Very clear, right? Maybe adding your friends to WhatsApp, using your address book, marking your chats as 100. Those things can come later. The core value proposition is allowing communication, right? For WhatsApp. So if that is working, you should launch your MVP. That will be the first test ground for your product in the market. Hope that answered that question.
So the next question is from Anup. So he's asking, typically, do you see tech issues during optimization? How do you come up with strategies for conversion optimization other than tech issues?
When you say tech issues, what I'm understanding is a problem in the code that leads to a bad experience, user experience. The user gets stuck, the screen gets stuck, or there is an abort scenario or some erroring out, right? I believe that is what she means by tech issue, right? Yes, optimization can take into account the tech issues also, right? Other than tech issues, what are the things you do is what I've listed in those hypothesis screens. Let me go back. Um, yeah. So if you look at this funnel, there are a lot of things other than tech issue, right? Maybe in fact, one of the things at the last, which is integration issues with the payment provider, that is probably the only tech issue here. Everything else is around the user, understanding the user, and improving the product apart from technology, right? So you follow the whole same cycle for non-tech issues as well. Hope.
So, a question from Srikesh, how to modify the funnel way of evaluating customer drop off in traditional industry, that is when the product is B2B instead of a B2C.
Okay. So in B2B optimization, you will come up with a different theme, right? It goes to the theme again, right? Let's say, which example can I take? Just give me a second. I'm thinking of an example. Okay. Yeah, let's take an inventory management tool, right, from any of the ERP vendors, right? That and that is the product you are selling, and you are the product manager for that inventory management tool, right? Now you are in an optimization phase. You want to optimize, and you don't know what to do, right? So there are few stakeholders involved there, right? You start with those stakeholders, saying that uh, one is the users of the product, the people who are doing entry in the ERP systems, right, who are moving inventory and everything. Two is the buyers, which is the management of your customer, right? They are the one who get value out of the whole product, right? When you sell inventory management, you are saying that okay, it reduces your manual work, uh, and you are able to save so much effort and resources if you buy the product, right? That is the promise you are giving to the management, and the promise you are giving to the user is you are you will be able to do this work very efficiently without having to struggle. So these are two kinds of users you need to satisfy, right? And for the real users on the field, right, who are using your product, who are moving inventory with that, you should just sit with them, right? Understand what they are doing every day, right? And see if there is any efficient way. Even they are doing a process, right? The guy comes in, logs in every day, right? He gets some inventory, he moves to another person, he takes decision. Maybe he gets a phone call from another team, he moves inventory from this team, and he gets call from another team, he moves inventory to that team, he accepts inventory, he does some list of some, say, 10 tasks, right? You can sit with him and explore whether that 10 tasks can be reduced to 5 tasks, or maybe there are, I'm sorry, maybe there are 10 steps to doing his work. Can you make it 5 steps, right? Maybe it's not in whatever you have in the screens is not intuitive. So go sit with the users, you will find a lot of ideas which will eventually move the needle, right? So in the example I quoted, I can say that my optimization theme would be reducing the number of steps for my users, right? And whatever you do, or it can be number of steps, or reduce the time to do one transaction, right? Maybe there are 10 things you can do to reduce the time to do one transaction, right? And that forms your whole backlog, and you can start doing it, right? The other is increasing the value from a management point of view, your customer management point of view, right? Where in this case, maybe the customer is using your product in a couple of scenarios, and in some scenarios he's using Excel sheets, right? How can you add more value by removing the Excel sheet and building whatever he wants in your product, so that he doesn't have to use two tools? And that is one way to look at it. I mean, though this example is not particularly optimization problem, it's also extension related, but this is how you approach this B2B scenarios. I hope that answers the question.
So Venkat, last question for the day. There are a couple of more queries, so I'm just taking a more common question, which would address for everyone's queries. Uh, so Saravanan was asking best way to figure out product versus market fit. So what is the best ways to figure out product versus market fit?
Okay.
So that's a question from Saravanan.
Okay, it's okay. I don't think there's a straightforward answer to that.
If you want,
It's
we can take it offline. Want to
you
take.
know, in fact, it's to do more market research, or more uh, being more close with your customers. And this product market fit is a very tough question. I'm not saying for this session alone, but even if you look at the big writers about in marketing and strategy, they find that to be a tough question. For example, if you look at innovator's dilemma, right, finding that product market fit, there is no clear framework given there, even in that book. A lot of times it happens by chances. You find it by chance, accident. But to me, to even get that chance, you should sit with the customers and see what they are doing, and how they are behaving, and how they are using the current products, and then come up with an answer to it. Yeah, it's not a straightforward then, but being close to your customers will reduce the probability of becoming a miss. Yeah, hope that answers to a certain extent.
So Venkat, I think we can wrap up the session. So we'll be sending,
Great.
program team will be sending an email to the participants in case they have any more queries and feedback. So they can send us and we will forward them to you. So we'll try to answer the best possible. So
Definitely.
thank you for your time, Venkat. Thank you everyone
And
for joining the session, taking time out of your busy schedule. Please do keep following our website. There are more webinars and workshops coming on product management and as well as UX and design thinking, which is aligned to innovation. Uh, there are a lot more webinars coming up in future, and also we do physical workshops. So more details are available on the Product Innovation Academy website. Uh, Also, please share your feedback on the email if you have to improve our content and what you were expecting. If something was missing, we surely try to address it in the next sessions. Thank you, everyone.
thanks everyone for taking your time. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.